Yo, King!
He ignored you because you know what he did was wrong.
Hey, King, punk.
Yo, go see what those dudes want.
Yes, sir.
Excuse me?
Yes, sir. My apologies.
Honey! King, honey! Honey! Why are the three faithful wives calling me?
Stay in your place, Lisa.
It is my place to know. I help you to operate this business on a daily basis, and I won't.
You won't what?
I won't continue to be disrespected.
I'm gonna ask you this one time, man. Where did he go?
But he asked me to ask you through what you wanted.
Oh, so he's hiding his hand now.
George, move out of the way. Look, you don't want to get hurt.
I can't do
You know what this is about.
Yo, King! You can't hide now! You can't hide! Where is he?
Let me call you back.
Where is he?
Please deal with this peaceably.
Listen, lady, listen. All I'm trying to do is be a BMW, a black man working. And your husband owes me money. Where is he?
My lights are off. I had no money to my name, and he didn't even pay me what he owed me.
And I got 5 kids that I need to feed.
Okay. Go ahead.
So what's this, an intervention or something? Everybody want to question me. I'm the man. I'm not only the governor, I'm the king.
Just because we wouldn't bend or bow to your ways, you treat us like this?
You play by my rules. You win. If you don't, you lose.
Why couldn't you just keep it cool, man?
Cool? Fool? I'm the coolest.
And all we're asking for is our money, and we'll be out of your way.
Man, I'm sorry, but we have families and they're hurting.
Hurt or pain? You choose.
With all due respect, you want us to go to your private donors and get money and not report it. Then you want us to go and buy drugs for you. And then you want us to go to the whorehouses to pick up your tricks. Because we wouldn't got our hands dirty, you fire us without cause, without notice?
And not to even mention the lustful acts that you want us to take in. Man, we have wives, and so do you.
Look, y'all get out my office with all that crap.
What?
Get out my office.
Bro, this is grimy. We'll see you again. Grimy, bro. We'll see you again.
So sorry about what just happened in there.
It's okay.
So, give me a call.
What is
This
that?
is why you're so disheartened about losing your job.
What are you talking about?
Mom, please stop!
Just calm down.
It's not like that. What are you doing?
Okay, I got you.
It's not like
I
that.
got you.
What is she doing?
Her police.
Who you calling?
Please come. My husband just beat me.
What? Oh my God! Did I touch her? I didn't even do anything, man. She accusing me.
You had a right to remain silent.
But I didn't do anything. She accused me of something I didn't even do. Man.
Yo! I'm sorry, but y'all know this is a at-will state. At-will state? Yeah, at-will state? How you feel about this at-will?
You've been arrested for assaulting the governor of the state. Anything you say can and will be used against you in the court of law.
First, Rodney King. Fake mall cops.
Shut up. Go.
Get your hands off me. Get your hands off me. Get on my nerve. Get your hand off me. Get your hand off me. I said get your hand off me. Get your hand off me. Get your hand off me. Make me sick. That's why y'all ladies should stay in the kitchen barefoot and pray. Get y'all bags out on the one side. Get your hand off me. You better be glad my sister Charlize ain't here. She whoop your behind. Get your hand off me. Get your hand off me. This junk, man. You gonna get yours. You gonna get yours. You gonna get yours. You gonna get yours back. You gonna get yours back. You'll get yours. You'll get yours. I ain't done. Oh my God. Well, the story started in about 605 BC. When the king of Babylon, whose name was Nabopolassar, sent his son to Western Asia, perhaps, and even sent his son to fight against the Egyptians who were occupying Western Syria and parts of Palestine. There in 605 BC, that Nabopolassar's son, Nebuchadnezzar, run Pharaoh Necho II from Egypt, away from Western Syria and away from Palestine. Shortly thereafter, Nabopolassar, the king of Babylon, who's also called a Chaldean, passed away. And was monarchy set up in Babylon, did his son take the monarchy there in Babylon. His name was Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar becomes the king of Babylon after his father's death. And then he returned to Jerusalem in 597 BC when Jehoiakim was king there of Judah. When he went to Judah and Jerusalem in 597 BC, he took thousands of Jews from Israel into a period called Babylonian captivity. Then he came back in 586 BC after Jehoiakim had died, and Joachim's son Jehoiachin became the king there of Judah. 586 BC did Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonians destroy Judah, destroyed the temple, stripped thousands of Jews away from the land of their nativity, and took them off into a period called Babylonian exile. But prior to the destruction of the temple in 586 BC, perhaps the first or second carrying away from the Jews from Israel to Babylon, were some young Jewish champions taken by Nebuchadnezzar into Chaldean captivity. Their original Jewish names, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. They are affectionately known in the 21st century as being the Hebrew boys. When Nebuchadnezzar wanted to make sure that everybody in his land followed paganism, pantheism, and polytheism, and wanted to get the Jews away from the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to get them a whoring after other gods of pagan nations. Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah had been favored by God with strength and wisdom that was unparalleled amongst the younger generation there in Babylon. You wonder tonight, who am I? I come tonight as a representative of my fellow friends. We are 21st century ocular demonstrations of Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Tonight, we're in a bad situation, one that we did not ask for. Tonight, even though we represent people of God, we find ourselves hemmed into a situation. Literally, we are in a jacked up predicament. We're in a jacked up predicament, and no one has put any money on our books. No one has sent us any socks. No one has sent us a carton of cigarettes. We're really here because of our faith and our advocacy and our belief in Jehovah. We're here in a bad place, and the reality is, as you are watching us and looked in on a 21st century adaptation of our story, many of you can identify readily with where we are right now. Because on this last day of the year, 2012, many of you have found yourselves in predicaments that you did not ask for. Many of you similarly find yourselves in situations that you were not hopeful of. Well, what caused our saga and why are we here? Me, as a representative of my fellow Jewish compatriots, we're here in a bad situation because Nebuchadnezzar and the enemy did some things to us that the enemy will try to do to you some 2,600 years after our Babylonian experience. Because the enemy specializes in doing several things to children of God to put them in precarious predicaments. Tonight we're in a quandary. Tonight we're in a quagmire. Tonight we're in bondage in Babylon for several reasons. And I hope that you can identify with why my friends and I are in this context. We understand this, that Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonian leaderships are only earthly tools of the kingdom of Satan. And Satan used Nebuchadnezzar indirectly to put a stain against the God of your faith. Because although our mothers and fathers named us Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah when we were there in the land of Judah, one of the first things that Nebuchadnezzar did when he took us and stripped us away from the land of our nativity off into Babylon. So difficult was Babylon that someone once would write later, by the rivers of Babylon, there we sat and wept when we remembered Zion. We hung our harps upon the willows thereof, because there in Babylon the psalmist would write that one of our Babylonian antagonists would periodically ask us to sing a song of the Jerusalem diaspora. Making mockery of us, they would ask us to sing one of the songs that we used to sing when we were there in Jerusalem. And the psalmist responded, how can we sing the Lord's song in a strange land? There in Babylon, we were forced again to make brick without straw. And what the enemy did for Mishael and Azariah and Hananiah, as soon as he took us from Jerusalem and Judah to Babylon, is he wanted us to question our own identity. Because the first thing that the enemy did when he took us from Jerusalem to Babylon is he changed our names from Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. And he gave us Babylonian names, Chaldean names. Those names were Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He changed our name because the suffix of our Hebrew name, El, meant God. And so our parents gave us names, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, which would often remind us of God. But the enemy stripped us of those names and gave us pagan names to take God out of our identity. Because if the enemy could make us question who we were, then our destiny could be threatened because we no longer understood who we were. Like Alex Haley would eventually write about Roots, about Kunta Kinte being changed to Toby. Nebuchadnezzar wanted us to change our names from godly names to names of slavery and bondage. Why? Because whenever your name identifies you as not godly, then the expectation is that your actions would subsequently follow. And so the enemy wanted us to change our identity. Isn't it interesting that some 2,000 years later, that when Christ would begin his earthly ministry, that what God did for him was allowed him to be baptized by his cousin John in the Jordan River. And when Jesus was baptized, and you will see that eventually as he's baptized in the Jordan River, God the Father spoke from on high, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." God wanted to authenticate and validate that Christ was his son, and so he gave him identity by saying, "You are my son." But then in the very next chapter, according to Matthew chapter 4, as Matthew writes from a Jewish perspective, Matthew writes that as Jesus was baptized, shortly thereafter, he was led up of the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. And after he fasted for 40 days and 40 nights, the tempter or the enemy came to him with the conditional statement, "If thou art the Son of God, then I want you to command that these stones be made bread." Isn't it interesting that in Matthew chapter 4, the first thing the enemy says to Jesus is this, "If you are the Son of God." It's strange because in Matthew chapter 3, verses 15, 16, and 17, God the Father had said, "This is my beloved Son." The enemy comes and says, "If you are the Son of God." We were named Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, but Nebuchadnezzar changed our names. Why? Because he felt if he could change our names, he could make us doubt who we are. And I'm here to tell you that whenever God has told you something, the enemy's job is to come right back along to try to make you doubt what God has said to you. But I'm here to tell you tonight, if God has said to you that 2013 is going to be a year of recovery, then you ought to let that become your identity. And regardless of bills in the mail, regardless of pink slips, regardless of what your friends have said or whoever has owed you money, never allow the enemy to cause you to doubt what God has said about you. When God has said you're an heir and a joint heir, you better believe that. I don't care if they found a lump on your breast, on your colon, on your prostate. If God has said you are healed, regardless of what the doctor has said, you got to remember this, that the best doctors are only practicing medicine. That's why it's called a medical practice. Because if God said you're healed, then don't let the enemy tell you that you're going to die. You got to declare, my identity is that I am the healed, that I shall live and not die, for he was wounded for my transgression. He was bruised for my iniquities. The chastisement of my peace was upon him. And with his stripes, I've already got the healing. Is there anybody in this house who can declare that I know what my identity is? That I'm blessed in the city, I'm blessed in the field, I'm the lender, I'm not the borrower, I'm the head and not the tail, I'm above and not beneath. I shall walk through troops, I shall leap over walls. If God said it, I believe it and declare it's done. And so the enemy's job is to try to get you to question your identity. So they changed our names from Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah to Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, trying to get us to question our identity, but we held on to our identity. But we're not only here tonight because the enemy tried to get us to question our identity, we're also here tonight because we had to deal with insecurity. As soon as we got in Babylon, he changed our names. We knew what he called us, but we also knew who we were. And it didn't matter what he called us because we knew who we were. Changed our names, but then had a test because he wanted us to eat the things that they were eating, meat that had been offered to idols and paganism. And we declared we would not do that. We went on a test and we ate the food that was important to us and to our custom. We were about doing the things that God had assigned. And after going through a test and having our own diet, we fared better than all of the brightest and strongest men in Babylon. And as a result, the king changed toward us. He stopped looking at us with a slave mentality, and he placed my friends and I over the affairs of Babylon. Can you imagine? Here we were, Jews, but we were running things in Babylon because our God had showed himself mighty and strong on our behalf. We were running things in Babylon. Our pigmentation did not look like theirs. We were on the lower rung initially of the social economic strata there in Babylon. We were slaves, but we were running things in Babylon. They thought we were stupid. They thought we were ignorant. They thought our bellies would be stuck out from pellagra and malnutrition, but we were running things in Babylon. Our noses were wider. Our lips were thicker, but we were running things in Babylon. Because we were Hebrews and they were Babylonians, they looked at our hair because our hair was kinky and they would call our hair nappy hair. But we knew we didn't have nappy hair. We knew we had obedient hair. Obedient hair, not nappy hair. Our hair is so obedient, we brush it, comb it, put it in one place and tell it to stay, and it don't move until we tell it to move. That's not bad hair, that's obedient hair. We were running things in Babylon. We were in charge of the affairs there in Babylon, but guess what happened? Because we were Jews running the affairs of things in Babylon, the king came up with a decree because as you saw, he was prideful, narcissistic, and egotistical. He built a statue, an image of himself throughout the land of Dura in Babylon, and then decreed through one of his lords that at the sound of specific music, that everyone who was a part of his constituency would bow to give homage and reverence to Nebuchadnezzar. We knew we couldn't do that because our parents taught us in Jerusalem in Sabbath school that God is a jealous God and that thou shalt have no other God before him. We said to ourselves in our own selves, in our own little get together, we will not bow to Nebuchadnezzar. Even though he had elevated us to run things in Babylon, we declared we would not bow. But it came to pass after a while. That what the king did is when he made that decree to make everyone bow, we refused to bow. But in Daniel chapter 3, verse number 8, some other Babylonians, some other Chaldeans were seeing that we would not bow. Everybody was bowing except us. And in Daniel chapter 3, verse number 8, some more Babylonians, some more Chaldeans, they got insecure. And because of insecurity, because we were Jews running things in Babylon and they were underneath us, because we wouldn't bow, guess what they did? In their insecurity, they went and like tattletales told the king, "King, everybody is bowing to your music, to your ego, except these 3 dudes that you've elevated from Jerusalem." And here is the irony. At the sound of the tone, everybody was supposed to bow. We decided that we would not bow, but these insecure Babylonians went to the king and told him, "These 3 guys won't bow to your music. They won't dance to your tune." And here is the irony. If they would have been bowing and paying attention to their own business, then they wouldn't have had any time to observe that anybody else was not bowing. And do you not know that that's just the way some Negroes and Negroettes are? Because rather than be concerned about their own business and bowing to the seat and dancing to the beat of their own drums, sometimes people get so jealous because of where you are and how God has elevated you that they'll do whatever they can to make sure that somebody pulls you down. And let me tell you, everybody who's against you is not somebody who looks different from you. Sometimes the enemy can have a different color, a different ethnicity, but sometimes your greatest enemy are people who share your own chromosomal connection. Sometimes your greatest enemy are people in your family. That's why Zora Neale Hurston once said, "Be careful, because all your skin folk ain't your kinfolk." You got to get to the point in your life that you don't allow insecure and jealous people to pull you down when God has elevated you. And I believe I got some people around here tonight who can identify with these friends and I, that you are not going to spend your time on jealous, insecure, insignificant people. Let them say what they want to say. Let them do what they want to do. But you got goals. You got visions. You got hopes. You got dreams. You got expectations. You got aspirations. You got territory to conquer. You got tents to enlarge. You got space to dwell in. Is there anybody in this house can testify that your eye is on the prize and not pusillanimous, duplicitous people? And so they threw us in a bad situation because of their insecurity. The enemy wanted us to question our identity. We're in this mess because of dealing with people who had insecurities. But thirdly, we're in this mess because we decided to maintain our integrity. The king came to us and said, "Are you going to bow?" King came to some of the young ladies who worked for him and said, "Are you going to lose your integrity for my own fleshly desires? What are you willing to do to keep your job? Lose your character, lift your skirt 4 inches above your knee, bow down to me." As you saw, we weren't afraid of the king. As you saw in that adaptation, we were not some docile, passive, tranquil jokers. No. It took some tough, it took some tenacity, it took some 6th century BC thuggery to stand up to the king and tell him, regardless of who you think you are, our God is stronger than you are. We stood up to the king and the king said, "If you don't bow, if you don't do what I ask you to do, I'm going to take your job. I'm going to take your positions. I'm going to put you in a furnace and I'm going to kill you to make sure that nobody else in the land disobeys me again." And we said, "King, do what you have to do. We will not bow. And if you throw us into the fire, King, our God is able to deliver us." Now, King, we can't say for certainty and with certainty that he will deliver us, but it's not about his willingness. We know he's able. If he does not deliver us, it's not because he's not able. And somebody tonight ought to thank God that he's able. Able to do what? To do exceeding abundantly above all you can ask or think. Able to do what? Now unto him who's able to keep you from falling. And so they locked us up. And when they locked us up, the king told the jailers, I want you to put them in a furnace. Lock Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, because they won't bow, because they stood up to me, because they did what God said and not what the world says. Lock them up, throw them into the jail, and turn up the fire 7 times. They threw us in the fire. They threw us in the fire. They threw us in the fire. They threw us into the fire. I don't think you heard me. I said they threw us in the fire. Matter of fact, the jailers who threw us in the fire was so hot that the scripture says it threw and burned them, and they were burned to death. You got to be careful how you treat folk, because the same ditch you dig for somebody else, you may be digging for your own self. And so they threw us in the fire. And after throwing us in the fire, we were in a bad situation. And you know, tonight I'm talking to somebody who in 2012 has been in some fires. I think there's some other folk in this room who've been in some fire, some financial fire in 12. Some fire with the children in 12. Some fire on the job in 12. Some fire in your health in 12. Is there anybody around this house who's ever been through some fire this year? Threw us in the fire thinking he was going to kill us. But I'm here tonight to bring you good news. Although we were in the fire, our fire was real. And although the fire killed the folk who threw us in the fire, and we were in the fire all night long, but then early the next morning, the king came and looked into the jail, looked into the furnace, expecting that we would be deceased, expecting that we would have been burned. And guess what? Although we had been in the fire all night, the king said, wait a minute. We thought that we threw in 3 folk. There's another one in the fire. There's another one who has made a pre-Golgotha soteriological theophilus epiphany and showed up in the fire. We threw in 3, but there's a 4th one in the fire. And the 4th one looks like, hey, the Son of God. And I'm talking to somebody tonight who's been in some fires this year. And folk are wondering how you survived all the hell you've been through. Can I tell you how you made it? That was a 4th one in the fire. And the 4th one, his name is Mary's baby. The 4th one is Joseph's steps boy. And he came down from heaven. He came down from heaven. He came down from heaven. And he delivered us out of our fire. He brought my friends and I out of the fire. And why don't you look at somebody and say, neighbor, you should have been dead, could have been burned, would have been burned. But the only reason you made it, because Jesus came down from heaven and he was the 4th person in the fire. Do me a favor. Look at a neighbor and say, neighbor, the only reason I'm here tonight is because I was a 4th man in the fire. Come on, shake a neighbor's hand. Say, neighbor, the reason you made it to the brink of a new year, woo, that was a 4th man in the fire. Now shake somebody's hand like you're gonna shake it off and say, neighbor,
flashing. I've had the thunder roar. Let me give God praise. We got 45 more seconds in 2012. Take some time and give him glory for the fourth man in the fire. Take a moment, shout hallelujah for the fourth man in the fire. Lift up your hands, say thank you, Jesus. Could have been dead, would have been dead, but the Now put your arm on a neighbor's shoulder. Say, neighbor, you got 5 more seconds. Let's give him praise. Because in 2013, Jesus will get in the fire with you. Do you believe it? Do y'all believe it? Shout yeah! Shout yeah! Shout yeah! Shout yeah! Shout yeah! Shout yeah! Everybody on your knees.